Hi, you guys. Welcome back. And of course, if you are new to Meaningful Motivations with Tracy Erickson, welcome. My name is Tracy Erickson, and this is video number 2 of the Evolution of Consciousness series. And in today's video, we will be discussing this little battle that's happening inside of everyone. And it's kind of like the battle between good and evil. But I like to call it the battle of the Christ versus the AntiChrist consciousness. So stay tuned. In part 1 of the Evolution of Consciousness, we discussed the root races and where we presently are as the evolution of the thinker is moving along. And at the present time, it is my belief and understanding that humanity is in between right now. We are kind of in between reasoning man and spiritual man. But either way, we're all headed towards the goal of becoming God-man, which is embodying the image and likeness of our Creator and being a creator in our own right here in the physical world. In part 1, I also discussed the importance of sharpening your discernment at this time, because this is the time where this battle between good and evil is raging on in humanity and really in the collective consciousness as a whole. So the more that you can understand this battle going on, then the better off and more powerful that humanity can be when it comes to the evolution of consciousness. And all of us, as a whole, uniting in the common regard. And that common regard is simply that we are here to continue to grow and develop. And we are no longer here to serve any lower, selfish, and evil means. In this sense, theology will tend to become theosophy. What, in effect, is theology? A knowledge of God imposed from without under the form of dogma as a kind of supernatural logic. And what is theosophy? A knowledge of God which blossoms like a flower in the depths of the individual soul. God, having vanished from the world, is reborn in the depths of the human heart. Reasoning man, his lower self with the ego involved as well, created the spirituality as we knew it in the past, such as religions. And it's really that reasoning man who is now developing into more spiritual man, who will begin to recognize his own intuition, which is really his own connection to his highest self, which is connected to his source. So I feel like the more of us that begin to recognize our inner intuition, then the more people are going to be kind of led towards spirituality. And this is where discernment will be needed, because those same lower egoic beings out there who want to control you with the outer religion will also try to control you with your inner spirituality. So it's very important to not only develop your own intuition, but also discernment. When you have sharpened your discernment, then you can know the vibration of your thoughts. And it's important to know the vibration of your own thoughts, because your thoughts are actually leading to the stream of consciousness that is ever flowing through you. Now, with this battle between good and evil that we are referring to in today's video, I'm referring to the Christ stream versus the Antichrist stream. In Dr. David Hawkins' scale of consciousness, the Christ stream can be depicted as the very pinnacle of strength of human consciousness. The Christ stream is at the very top of this scale of consciousness because it embodies the consciousness that is shared by Jesus and the Buddha. The Christ stream of consciousness is higher in power because it is above even love. Now, the Antichrist stream of consciousness is the lower half of the scale of consciousness, and the lower half of this scale is more in alignment with the Antichrist and those things which are against God. And so, if you are in the Antichrist stream of consciousness, it would actually mean that you are in these lower vibrations a majority of the time in your own thinking. And not only that, but it's also represented by what you are idolizing. So if you aren't actually knowing God in your life, then you're actually looking up to something else as your God in many cases. And so it's very common that those of the Antichrist stream are looking up to false idols, therefore leading them to maintain the negative thinking that would have a person become trapped in these lower vibrations. All one must do is become aware of this cycle and simply begin to change your thoughts. I talked all about that in a previous video about how to raise your vibration. And if you haven't seen that before, I'll be sure to link it up above as well. It is important to sharpen your discernment and to know the vibration of your thoughts, because the Antichrist is not another person or being or entity. The Antichrist are thoughts that invade your temple. Your temple is your body and mind. The Antichrist is a spirit or energy that is against God, that is at work in the world. In Revelation chapter 13, verse 1 through 10, it speaks of the first beast. It says, "Then I saw a beast come out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads. On its horns were 10 diadems, and on its head blasphemous names. The beast I saw was like a leopard, but it had feet like a bear's, and its mouth was like the mouth of a lion. To it the dragon gave its own power and throne, along with great authority. I saw that one of its heads seemed to have been mortally wounded, but this mortal wound was healed. Fascinated, the whole world followed after the beast. They worshipped the dragon because it gave its authority to the beast. They also worshipped the beast and said, 'Who can compare with the beast, or who can fight against it?' The beast was given a mouth uttering proud boasts and blasphemies, and it was given authority to act for 42 months. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, and those who dwell in heaven. It was also allowed to wage war against the holy ones and conquer them, and it was granted authority over every tribe, people, tongue, and nation. All the inhabitants of the earth will worship it, all whose names were not written from the foundation of the world in the book of life, which belongs to the Lamb who was slain. Whoever has ears ought to hear these words. Anyone destined for captivity goes into captivity. Anyone destined to be slain by the sword shall be slain by the sword. Such is the faithful endurance of the holy ones. And in Revelation chapter 13, starting at verse 11, it speaks of the second beast. Then I saw another beast come up out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb's, but spoke like a dragon. It wielded all authority of the first beast in its sight, and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound had been healed. It performed great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in the sight of everyone. It deceived the inhabitants of the earth with the signs it was allowed to perform in the sight of the first beast, telling them to make an image for the beast, who had been wounded by the sword and revived. It was then permitted to breathe life into the beast's image, so that the beast's image could speak and could have anyone who did not worship it put to death. It forced all of the people, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be given a stamped image on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that no one could buy or sell except one who had the stamped image of the beast's name or the number that stood for its name. The number of man? Well, we weren't called man until the imagination was born and we had reasoning. So therefore, the number of man is all about mastery over your imagination and also over your conscious ego, symbolic of the number 9, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6, which is 18, which is 1 plus 8, equaling 9. So not only is this number representing mastery over your own imagination, but it's also mastery over your conscious ego. It's a level of completion and understanding. Now, what do these 2 beasts represent in Revelation? You see, the Antichrist energy points people to 2 beasts. Now, we have the earth beast, which makes you worship the beast of the sea. So you have the 2 beasts. And the 2 beasts make you focus on those earthly things, all to ultimately worship the dragon, which is symbolic for the conscious ego. This is represented by Revelation chapter 13, verse 4, where it states that they worship the dragon because it gave its authority to the beast. They also worshiped the beast and said, "Who can compare with the beast, or who can fight against it?" And then, as you can see in Revelation chapter 13, verse 11, it says, "Then I saw another beast come up out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb's, but spoke like a dragon." Oh, so the second beast looks like a lamb, but speaks like a dragon. So that is really saying that the Antichrist makes the beast worship look harmless, but ultimately you're worshiping your ego and lower self. Let me say that again. The Antichrist energy makes beast worship look harmless, but in the end, you are ultimately worshiping your ego and your lower self, rather than your connection to source, your own highest self, and the best and greatest, most powerful story that you can express through the actions of your lifetime. So the Antichrist energy is trying to steal your attention and make you believe that focusing here only on the physical plane, focusing only on what feeds your lower self, what feeds your ego, is all that's important. But the Christ consciousness within you is asking you to once again connect with source and to know your higher self and to understand that you were born with greatness. So what do we do? How do we plug in to the Christ stream and plug into the highest version of ourselves, we use our own discernment to actually look at our own vibration. We look at ourselves and we really begin to understand the thoughts that we are perpetuating in our own lives. Let's take a look at John for the truth here. In John's first letter, in chapter 2, verse 18, he speaks of AntiChrist, saying, "Children, it is the last hour, and just as you heard that the Antichrist was coming, so now many Antichrists have appeared. Thus we know this is the last hour." So John even stated in his letter that the Antichrist is not like one simple beast or even two beasts. There are many, and the many represented here in the energy of the Antichrist are the many thoughts and perceptions and ways of seeing the world that can lead to more and more of that same negative, lower vibrational energy thinking. It is your thoughts that is going to determine if you are flowing through the Christ consciousness or if you are allowing the Antichrist consciousness to invade your temple. And in the end, the letters of John are simply telling us the power of the Christ consciousness. And we can know the Christ consciousness through the life of Jesus the Christ. So, when your thoughts are in alignment with that highest version of yourself, the highest part of you, which is your inner self, when you know your inner self, then you know you are a child of God. So that is what Jesus came to teach, right? So that is why John even points out in his letters that when we use Christ as an example in our lives, then we can understand and know that we can all have the strength and the power that was possessed by the Christ, because it's a stream of consciousness. In the end, John wrote, "I write these things to you so that you may know that you have eternal life, you who believe in the name of the Son of God. And we have this confidence in him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us in regard to whatever we ask, we know that what we have asked him is ours. If anyone sees his brother sinning, if the sin is not deadly, he should pray to God, and he will give him life. This is only for those whose sin is not deadly. There is such a thing as deadly sin, about which I do not say that you should pray. All wrongdoing is sin, but there is sin that is not deadly. We know that no one begotten by God sins, but the one begotten by God he protects, and the evil one cannot touch him. We know that we belong to God, and the whole world is under the power of the evil one. We also know that the Son of God has come and has given us discernment to know the one who is true. And we are in the one who is true, in his Son, Jesus Christ. He is the true God and eternal life. Children, be on your guard against idols. The more that you are in the powerful thoughts that are keeping you in the Christ stream of consciousness, then you are sharpening your discernment. And if you learn the language of mind, the language of the mind through symbols, you are also sharpening your discernment. So in part 3 of Evolution of Consciousness, we will be talking about dream symbols and the world in astral symbolism. So if you're not yet subscribed to Meaningful Motivations with Tracy Erickson, be sure to click subscribe down below, and that way you can turn on the notifications bell so that you could be notified each and every time I upload a new video. Well, that about wraps it up for this video. So if you like this video, be sure to click that like button. And don't be shy, comment down below your thoughts on this series, The Evolution of Consciousness. Thank you guys so much for watching and spending your time with me. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.